This is the SaveHeart Stories podcast. Real-life stories of lives saved and changed due to sudden cardiac arrest and the availability of life-saving AED devices. Because one life lost is too many, these stories matter. Here's your host, Dave Fritzsche.
Welcome to HeartNation and SaveHeart Stories. I'm your host, Dave Fritzsche. Here we share special stories about special people combating the effects of sudden cardiac arrest, the leading natural cause of death in the United States. Today's guest is joining us from beautiful Geneva, Illinois, and I'm lucky to call him both a personal friend and a trusted business advisor. Tormod Larsen and his family started the Kristoffer Larsen Big Heart Memorial Foundation after their son, Kristoffer, and brother, Kristoffer, tragically passed away in 2016 at the age of 22. Tormod and the foundation have done unbelievable work to raise awareness and take both proactive and reactive measures against sudden cardiac arrest in their community and surrounding area, and also fund some research into the causes and ways to combat sudden cardiac arrest. Tormod, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you here on SaveHeart Stories. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, Dave. Appreciate the nice introduction. Nice to be here.
Fantastic. You know, there's so much to uncover with the foundation and the work that you've done there locally in Geneva. But before we do, I always like to ask a little bit more so that our audience can learn, as I have, about Kristoffer and what made him such a special young man. He was kind, he was unselfish, caring, both to folks he knew and to those that he didn't know. What else can you tell us about Kristoffer that made him such a special young man?
Yeah, again, he was our oldest kid. He was born in Norway. We moved to the States in '99, so he was 6 years old at that time. So I think he, just being used to adapt to different environments. Lived in Texas, moved up here to Illinois. To your point, very caring for his siblings and everybody around him. And growing up, he was a social kid. Did a lot of different sports. Specifically, he was a runner, and very active, outgoing person.
That's fantastic. And I know that as we've discussed, Geneva is home of the Vikings, and I thought that was appropriate given your Norwegian roots and all of your family, including Kristoffer's love of Norway. So, at any rate, well, we really appreciate you sharing about Kristoffer. And again, I've come to know you over the last many years and to hear his story. So I feel like I know him, and I know through your foundation's work, many are also aware of his lasting legacy and kind and generous spirit. So again, just inspiring work from you and your family with the foundation. I really like the mission of the foundation, and everyone's got a mission, businesses, not-for-profits. Number one, it's about awareness, right, of cardiac arrest, the fact that it's not only the leading natural cause of death in the United States, but also such a problem for youth and young adults. But also you're doing a lot with both proactive screenings, we'll call them, for heart conditions. And I know Kristoffer had hypertrophic cardiomyopathy and enlarged heart, which I know about myself because I have the same thing, but also reactive, placing AEDs in the community, things you can do, to protect your local schools and your community. And then lastly, the funding of some research. Can you share a little bit more about the great work that you and your family are doing with the foundation in those four areas?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So again, after we gone through the grief of losing Kristoffer, it's one of those things. It's like, what could we do, right? And kind of create a little bit of meaning behind the tragedy. So we'd start, doing some research and see, these type of conditions. We hadn't heard that much about them, and then start to learn that 1 in 300 kids are walking around with these underlying heart conditions that put them at risk for certain cardiac death. And to your point, we learned about screenings that have happened in other parts of the world where significantly been able to reduce the amount of deaths. So that's kind of the proactive part of it. Then obviously a lot of cases, not all the kids or in general are screened. So it makes sense also to have a reactive, right? Like we said, have access to AEDs in places where people are um, um,
gathering.
we actually have access to them, and a lot of them are locked down, right? As you know, right? They're in a office or in a closet, but how do you get them access to the public?
Right.
And with all of that, to your point, is the awareness. How do you make sure that people are aware of both the need for screenings, the access to AEDs? So I think that's very important. And then obviously it is, you mentioned research, last kind of leg, foot to the leg or the leg to the stool, where it's,
Right.
learning more so we could kind of, make the right decisions. And it's kind of tying into those three other ones, right? So we've been involved some specifically with Northwestern, what could be done, how big is the problem, right? Like you said, a lot of times it's so fragmented because of HIPAA laws and all that. So the information is not out there in a lot of cases, and it's a lot of different data. And when people are hearing different statistics or different data, they lose the credibility, or they are asking the questions, is this the right thing? So I think research is really good to help, obviously, find better methods, but also improve the data set.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why your mission, the kind of the four pillars, I guess, of the mission are so foundational, because you're attacking sudden cardiac arrest from all angles, especially as it relates to youth and young adults. And, I just had a unbelievable time, a meaningful time when I attended my first screening with Tormod, with you and the foundation in 2024 in Geneva High School, where I know you've done several screenings over the years. And, just to be there and knowing that you've changed the game there, but it's also so wonderful for the students and the staff and people like me and the other volunteers, and many of whom are, I think, recurring, that come back and back every year, or every other year, I should say, when you do your screenings, because it's so meaningful. And that didn't exist before. And I think that's one of the greatest legacies probably that you're working on, among others. Can you tell us a little bit about those statistics you referenced, where you really have flagged some students that may have had a condition, just like Kristoffer did, just like I did and still do, whether it's hypertrophic myopathy or other heart abnormalities? These screenings are so important in uncovering potential risks that then, the families can talk through and talk with their doctor about, to see what they need to do, if anything, or how to monitor it. Can you tell us about the great stats that you've helped uncover over the years through your screenings?
Yes. So, like you said, Kristoffer passed in 2016, and we started the foundation in 2017, and was really initially focused on starting a recurring screening program at the Geneva High School. So we worked with Tom Rogers, the principal at the school, and our commitment was, we're going to fund it, run it, bring it to the school every other year, to your point. And again, as a recurring program, not like a one-time thing. And so since 2018, we screened a little over 5,000 students.
Wow.
And so far we found 32 students that had underlying conditions that put them at risk for certain cardiac arrest. We teamed up with Young Hearts for Life that, done a lot of these for quite some time in the, Chicago suburbs. I think they've done well over 300,000, and the numbers are very similar. So a little bit more than the 1 in 300. I think that's what we've seen. I think that's what they've seen. So it's certainly humbling to see that, right? And in a strange way, gratifying to see at least we're making a difference, right? It's like I said, humbling and with sadness to some degree, but also, it's so that's been, the main kind of focus that we started off with.
Yes.
And then, like I mentioned, been working on a community AED program to kind of have the reactive. We have a scholarship program where we have, students that have been taking kind of both the vision and the mission to other places as well, which been really nice to see as well.
Well, and I'm glad you touched on that. You read my mind because I wanted to ask you about that and the scholarship. And also, I know there's one gentleman in particular I wanted to have you give us the background on again that graduated Geneva High School. I think he's now studying to be a doctor. If he's not already, maybe an intern, the gentleman down in Alabama. If you could reference him and the wonderful work that your foundation really has helped him to develop into a medical professional and using the Kristoffer Larsen Big Heart Memorial Foundation as a springboard.
Yeah, no, so like I said, we had started with a screening. We kind of thought we wanted to do a little bit more, so we started a scholarship, and very much of what you mentioned, students with a similar traits as Kristoffer, that cares and if they were involved in sport, yeah. And so the first recipient was Nathan Lemon, and he was a graduate of Geneva High School. He's currently a pre-med student at the University of Alabama, Birmingham. And I think he had both seen the screening and seen what impact that had on him and his his friends. Obviously, he had a desire to go into the medical field, and when he was in Alabama, there was no such thing there, and he saw the need, and so and like I said, he was our original or the first recipient of the scholarship. So he decided to take on himself to start a screening program in Alabama, and so he called me up and asked me for some advice. Obviously, as a college student, the finances was challenging. A lot of other things that were challenging. So we decided to help with the funding piece. But he was the one that basically ran the entire thing. Got the permission, got everybody aligned, got kind of our organization to help him do the screening, and it was.
What a really
thing. Yeah, really special to see, a young man take such a leadership and care of his community. So,
well, you picked your first scholarship winner. I'm sure others very well. I had a brief conversation with Nathan per your email introduction a few months back, and was just so impressed with him. And of course, he did all this down in Alabama, UAB, while he was studying, right? And I know he hooked up with some other not-for-profits down there. And just really a special young man. So again, another part of your legacy through the foundation. So just really impressive. Thanks for sharing that about Nathan. I'm gonna have to reach out to him again. I'm overdue. And so the screenings again every other year, right? Because young kids or teenagers, right? They grow so rapidly. You don't want to screen them every year, but every other year. So maybe when they're a freshman or a sophomore, they're going to do it either as a junior or senior at Geneva. And as you mentioned, Young Hearts for Life is so impressive. A lot of screening organizations around the country, they're all impressive, but I like the model of Young Hearts for Life here in the Chicago area, in particular because they've got the doctors and the helpers right there on staff during the screening, so they can actually real time read some results and again flag some young adults that might need some follow-up with their physician and their family. When is the next screening at Geneva High School?
March 10th of 2026. So coming up quickly. Yeah, just after the holidays. So we're looking forward to it. And at this point, we pretty much have it down. To your point, Young Hearts for Life is fantastic. They're very organized, very professionally run. Screening, and I think that's the reason that the school now, they know what to expect. They know that this is it's fairly low impact to the school. Come in, you run it. Basically, it's the day before, do training of the volunteers, which is all bystanders, parents, others.
And it only lasts about an hour or so. I did that training. It's very, very easy and very informative.
And we have about 100, 150 volunteers, which is, very thankful to them. And then during the actual screening day, instead of the students going to PE, they go into the gym and they get, AKG, and we have, maybe 30 different stations because we screen well over 1,000 kids. I think we've been up towards 1,500 kids,
Wow.
and it's a very organized manner. Privacy
Screens. Yeah.
screens and all that, and a very kind of well planned out. So take them maybe 5 minutes for the students to get through it, but also doing it as an event like that. I call it kind of positive peer pressure because
Yeah.
a lot of the kids, a lot of times we've maybe had 800-900 kids sign up, and we have several hundred that sign up the day off because when they see all their friends doing it, then they don't want to be left out. And I think that tradition, by doing it on a regular basis, kind of just help. Then again, it's that awareness. The parents know, everybody know, and like you said, they do it every other year. So through your high school career, you typically will do it twice. So that just creates a very good kind of cadence to it. So
Without question. And now that it's 7-8 years old, it's been part of the school fabric, and you've got the support of the administration and the school, and the students actually really love to do it, and then they actually continue to do it and learn from it. And people like your scholarship winner Nathan, it becomes such a meaningful thing. So congratulations on doing that. I will be there in March with you again, so we'll talk, of course, before then, but I'm looking forward to that, Tormod.
no, I appreciate it, and helping spreading the word. So
absolutely. Plus I love Geneva, and you and I are overdue as well. So it'll be nice to catch up with you, even though I know you're crazy busy during those days. So, I wanted to, with your background as a wireless technology infrastructure executive, and obviously now with the foundation, you've probably seen a lot in the industry in general, right? I'll call it the AED, sudden cardiac arrest industry, or with the awareness of SCA and everything else. What have you seen that's given you some real hope that we are making a difference in the survival rate from cardiac arrest, which, as you know, it's kind of hovered around 10% nationally, which is not great. And that's why I call it an ongoing epidemic. It's not, a one-time thing. It is a recurring problem. And now there's been more awareness with Damar Hamlin, and, there's better technology over the years with some of the AEDs and monitoring and so forth. But what have you seen that gives you hope that we are making a difference, from the screenings to the AEDs themselves to some other things? And then what are some other things maybe that can, we can improve on to make a difference in the fight against cardiac arrest?
just kind of taking a step back, what I said about the screenings, right? It's I won't say easy, but it's very doable, and we've proven that in the high school environment, right? Because you have a very attentive audience. That the students are there. You get into college and later years, it's becoming a lot harder, right? For so many different reasons. So I think what's kind of some of the things I see at a state level there on the screenings, where states start making it mandatory or more awareness. It's not as far as I wanted to go, and I know there's a lot of us that have the same opinion, but at least it's progress, right? It's certain states that are itching closer to that, making it a mandate. Now it's coming to the next phase of it. Okay, what we do for the broader population, making access to public accessible AEDs, coming along with awareness. And like I said, you have had certain events, as sports, it obviously went Hamlin, but it was actually, I think last year, 2 female soccer players that,
Right.
had similar situations on the pitch. So unfortunate, it's those type of events that sometimes raise the awareness.
now it's like, what's the action to
Yes.
prevent it, right? And not only in a professional sports setting, right? They have access to ADs, they have access to the medical teams, but
and they're right there on staff, which is the exception to the rule, of course, right?
Yeah. You mentioned you're walking down, 3rd Street in Geneva, and something happens. You don't have that, right? So how do you make sure that in those settings, you have access to it, people are aware of how to act and save life, honestly. So there we still have some a ways to go for sure, but you start seeing certain communities that becoming more proactive, and you've done a great job with a number of municipalities that said, look, here's what we're going to do. So it's that groundswell, but it's also need to kind of eventually come a bigger thing. I wouldn't say mandate, but at least more awareness that communities and so forth are seeing it. So same thing there. It's some progress, not as much progress as we would hope. But I start seeing, and to your point about technology, in my previous company, we deployed a lot of infrastructure in the right of way, which is basically, accessible to the public. It's a lot of initiatives in around smart cities. So I think the smarter, safer community side of it, that's, AEDs and heart safety should be part of it. And I think it's definitely things there that should make it easier, or at least being part of a larger trend, if you want, and the fact that it is equipment in the right of way there to make people safer. There's a lot of cameras out there. Why wouldn't you have AED when you already have the power and connectivity? So I think that's kind of, and a lot of it coming back to awareness, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's why I take, and I really appreciate that perspective, Tormod. You hit on so many important things right there. And you're right. You having, through this tragedy that your family's experienced, are paying it forward to others now for many years, 7 or 8 years now locally. And even though, you and I are still talking, for instance, about getting outdoor AEDs throughout Geneva, and there's just some beautiful trails and parks, not to mention the school and the downtown, all those things. It is happening around the country, but at least in Geneva, through your work, the students that have been screened, the parents that know their kids have been screened, the effort that you being in the community and doing your work, the awareness is fairly high there. It doesn't mean that's, like you said, it's not perfect yet, but it is progress. And then when it does happen, you're going to be able to point, or people are going to be able to point to Geneva to say, hey, they're doing that. We need to do that. And that's what we've seen on the outdoor side here at SaveHeart. People that are doing a lot of screenings, for instance, and done a marvelous job like you have with the foundation, may not have the coverage they need with public access AEDs outside. And so we then hit that side. Other people have actually put the AEDs, out in the community, public access, including outdoors, but they're not doing the screenings. And that's why we as SaveHeart by HeartNation are also sponsoring some of those screenings with some other local partners around the country. And that's why your mission is so special, and your model, because you're hitting it from all angles. So I think you're right, though. The continued work that you do and others do is engendering benefit for its own good in your community there in Geneva, but it's also then kind of an echo effect of others that know what you're doing. And that's happening elsewhere. So we're going to continue to work with you and partner with you on the screenings and tell the story about the larger community on the reactive side, to put AEDs where people are if there is an emergency. But it all matters. And I just congratulate you on a job well done. And we're going to keep up the work with you. So it's exciting.
Yeah, the job is not yet done yet, but at least we're progressing, right? But yeah, thank you for all the work we've done together, and I'm looking forward to continue it. It's to your point, I don't think it's one single thing, and we just brought up Nathan earlier. That's where you start seeing things kind of going broader and it making an impact beyond the actual, either being a screening or a placement of a AED, is when you start creating that awareness, because I think that's what you need to be able to make this more of a priority, because that's what it's coming down to. How that being, high school associations that realize that this should be, a part of their pre-participation check of students, or colleges that should be, more aware, and obviously the broader population as well, because they have kids and they learn about it. And I think all of that is how these things kind of play together. And to your point, it's not, a one part of this. They go hand in hand.
Without question. And the younger generation is more aware than we were. That's for sure. And I think that's going to continue as well. But it's because of organizations like you and the work and the collaboration, really, I've seen in the industry over the past 25 years has just increased tremendously, especially over the last, I'd say, 5 years. And so that's why I just always thank and congratulate people that like you that have turned tragedy really into triumph. And it doesn't mean that it's done, but the journey is so meaningful. And even the SaveHeart Stories podcast we're doing here today, right? It's I'm no podcast expert, but I've been learning from some mentors, and really lucky to talk to people like you to help spread the stories and the awareness that's happening really all around the country. And that's going to continue. So we are honored and lucky to be able to talk to special people like you, Tormod, and looking forward to continuing to work with you.
Yeah,
I guess just, as we wrap up, there's so many things to talk about, and you touched on so many great points. So I'm really looking forward to sharing this podcast with our audience and others. Where else can people go to learn more about Kristoffer and the wonderful work you do with the Kristoffer Larsen Big Heart Memorial Foundation? And then I guess remind us, it's March 10th at Geneva High School is the next screening. If people want to donate or support, they can go to your website, I imagine.
Absolutely. So yeah, KristofferBigHeart.org is the website. We have a Facebook site and a Instagram site as well. But to your point, you can go there and donate either, I think actually next Tuesday is Giving Tuesday, right? So that's another opportunity. And then obviously, like I said, we need, well over 100 volunteers on March 10th. So they're on the website, or they could reach out to us to get the sign up. Either you want to volunteer, or also get your, if you're a Geneva resident and you have a kid at the high school, get them signed up early. And it's important. And again, it's painless and quick, and it's a good kind of insurance policy. So love to see. It's
very meaningful for all too, as well, beyond the benefit it provides.
Yeah,
I can say that firsthand. And Tormod, we're also going to share not just this podcast, but also the event through our social channels and our network. I'm going to try and bring a few other volunteers besides just me this time. Perhaps my wife, we'll see. But we're going to see on the March 10th. And I think, again, you and your family are just doing an unbelievable job in honoring Kristoffer's legacy and spirit, and for the community in Geneva. So we are looking forward to seeing you soon. I think, we're going to continue to spread your story and spread ours as well, and others. So job well done. That's all we had. And I wanted to thank our wonderful guest, Tormod Larsen, and the Kristoffer Larsen Big Heart Memorial Foundation for joining us here on SaveHeart Stories. If you'd like to hear other incredible people like Tormod, please tune in to SaveHeart Stories. Listen wherever you stream your favorite shows. And until then, it's Dave Fritzsche reminding us all to be grateful every day. And we'll see you next time on our next edition of SaveHeart Stories.
This has been the SaveHeart Stories podcast with Dave Fritzsche, AED industry veteran and founder of SaveHeart by HeartNation. To learn more about how outdoor AEDs can keep your community safer, call 312-953-6928 or email Dave at saveheart.life. Proudly made in the USA, SaveHeart's highly visible, alarmed, lighted, temperature-controlled, and 24/7 monitored outdoor cabinets provide immediate visibility and access to life-saving AEDs. Stop the bleed kits, Narcan, and other emergency supplies. They are ideal for parks, athletic fields, trails, schools and universities, marinas, business districts, and any outdoor locations where people congregate. Click on www.saveheart.life for more information. SaveHeart Stories is a presentation of SaveHeart by HeartNation.